once again. Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world, more particularly to all Shepherd's Rod believers, and most especially to our beloved brothers and sisters in the United States of America. Special greetings to our brethren in Colorado, in PG Island, in Mexico, Spain, Africa, to the United Kingdom, and also to our brethren in Australia, and to the rest of the 144,000 living saints scattered abroad. Greetings, and may the good Lord bless you, brothers and sisters. This is our episode number 12 on the subject, the day of slaughter. Here I would like to begin our study reading volume 6, page 19. The Lord God of heaven will not send upon the world his judgments for disobedience and transgression until he has sent his watchmen to give the warning. He will not close up the period of provision until the message shall be more distinctly proclaimed. Volume 6, page 19, or the Lord will do nothing except he revealeth his secret unto his servants, the prophets. Amos 3 verse 7. And it says here in 2TG number 10, page 25, that God, in the time of the judgment and in accordance with his uniform dealing with the human family, in warning them of coming events vitally affecting their destiny, Amos chapter 3, verse 6 and 7, sends forth a proclamation of the approach of the second advent of Christ, that this work is symbolized by the three angels of Revelation chapter 14, that their threefold message brings to view a work of reform to prepare a people to meet him at his coming. 2TG number 10, page 25. Now, in track number 1, on page 29 and page 30, it says here, as the words which Ezekiel was to speak to his people were found in the book which he ate. The book can be none other than the Bible, from which comes the message culminating in joy, mourning, and woe. And blew a roll of a book was therein, and he spread it before me. And it was written within and without. And there was written therein lamentations and mourning and woe. Ezekiel 2 verse 9 and 10. Thy right in visaging the slaughter in Ezekiel 9. And the words pronounced in the master's parables, the Lord of that servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him, and in an hour that he is not aware of. He shall cut him asunder, and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then said the king to the servants, bind him hand and foot, and take him away, and cast him into outer darkness, and there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Matthew 24, verse 50, verse 51. Matthew 22, verse 13. The shepherd's rod plainly telling us that this message is projecting the slaughter in Ezekiel 9. And the word pronounced in the master's parables is to that servant, to that ministry, by which they were in total ignorance and darkness concerning the slaughter in Ezekiel 9. The work of Elijah, antitypical Elijah, according to tract number 8, page 61, saying, therefore, the work of Elijah, particularly, typifies the day of slaughter in the church. That is his work. Particularly pointing to the day of slaughter. In General Conference Special, pages 7 and 8, it says, this will be the devil's deal. While the day of God is approaching, and while Elijah is making the announcement of it, as the scroll unrolls, and while the prophecies concerning the day of God are being unsealed, his work and his interpretation of the prophecies for the great day will identify him as the promised Elijah, the prophet. General Conference Special, page 7. And here in White House Recruiter, page 29, in other parabolic terms, the great and dreadful day of the Lord is his casting out the bad fish and putting the good into vessels. Matthew 13, verse 47 and 48. So the voice of inspiration says that the great and dreadful day of the Lord is His casting out the bad fish and putting the good into pieces. White House Recruiter, page 29. Now, I would like to read track number 3 on page 53. It says, this startling revelation shows conclusively that the cleansing according to Daniel 8 verse 14 is first of the sanctuary in heaven and second of the sanctuary on earth. Track number 3, page 53. The statement is very plain that the cleansing first the sanctuary in heaven. Then after the cleansing of the sanctuary in heaven is finished, then second of the sanctuary on earth. We call the cleansing of the sanctuary in heaven as the spiritual side, but the cleansing of the sanctuary on earth is the material side. But the shepherd's rod is very plain that the cleansing first in heaven and second on earth, perfectly corroborating to the statement in answerer number 5 that the first aspect of the judgment is bookwork, both to the dead and to the living. Let us read answerer number 5, page 30. It says, this is the first aspect of the judgment, and being only a bookwork, Daniel 7 verse 10, a work that does not disturb either the dead in the graves or the living in the church. It takes place in heaven. So the first aspect of the judgment is bookwork. And concerning the cleansing, let us distinctly separate the cleansing in the holy place and the cleansing in the most holy place. The cleansing in the most holy place is blotting out of sins, the sins of the righteous. Whereas the cleansing in the holy place is blotting out of names, the names of the wicked. So the statement in track number 5, (110) and 111, saying, "But why leave out the court? Why not measure it also? For since it is a part of the building, it too must be symbolical of saints. Obviously, because it represents the great multitude which no man could number, measure, of all nations and kindreds and peoples and tongues." Revelation 7 verse 9. The last who come from among the Gentiles. The court, in other words, is symbolical of the immeasurable, innumerable harvest of second fruits, brought in after the measurable, numerable harvest of first fruits, the 144,000. It is not measured, meaning investigated, because it represents those among whom there are no bed to be cast out. For they are gathered in after the cleansing of the heavenly temple, after the judgment of the dead, after the separation of the bad from among the good in the church, as illustrated by the parable of the net. Matthew 13 verse 47 and 48. They are those who by name, my people, Revelation 18 verse 4, are called to come out of Babylon, and who with no unclean among them, Isaiah 52 verse 1, come into the already purified and living church of God. Track number 5, 110, 111. First of all, the statement is very plain that at the time when the message is proclaimed to the constituent of the great multitude, at that time, the church is already purified. And most important of all, it is in the time by which the cleansing of the heavenly temple is completely finished. The shepherd's rod made it so plain that the great multitude will be converted to the message after the cleansing of the heavenly temple. And that cleansing cannot be in the most holy place. Because at that time when the message was proclaimed to the great multitude, that is the time that the judgment of the dead is finished. It says after the judgment of the dead. Not after the judgment of the living. So, it is in absolute importance to have a clear conception, the cleansing in the holy place and the cleansing in the most holy place. The cleansing in the most holy place is blotting out of sins. Whereas the cleansing in the holy place is blotting out of names. And the term cleansing and purification is pointing to the same event. Now let us focus to the term purification. In 1 TG, number 11, on page 10, it says, "Thus the Lord charged his messengers to cry yet, to proclaim again, to continue preaching the additional light, the judgment for the dead, the cleansing of the sanctuary," Daniel 8 verse 14, "the purification of it by blotting out from the books the names of those who are found not eligible to come up in the first resurrection, the resurrection of the holy ones." But that is not the only resurrection. There are 3 different resurrections. Revelation 20 verse 5 and 6, Ezekiel 37, and Daniel chapter 12. Here we can clearly discern that the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary is clustered by God by resurrection. And such proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary is attached by the shepherd's rod to the parable in Matthew 20. According to 2SR 222, as well as 225 and 226. By which we can easily discern that in Matthew 20, there are 5 distinct calls. There must be 5 proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary. There are 5 proceedings. And I would like to enumerate one by one, focusing first in the holy place. For the shepherd's rod plainly told us in tract number 3, page 18, saying, "Hence, his mediatorial work began first in the holy, then in the most holy." Tract number 3, page 18. Christ's mediatorial work must begin first in the holy, then in the most holy. Brothers and sisters, it cannot be construed that only those who died under the first 5 seals, represented by the temple, will undergo the proceedings in the holy place. For the shepherd's rod made it so plain in tract number 5 on page 109 in 110, it says, and as the measuring is figurative of the same work that is found, we know, in Revelation 11. Revelation chapter 11 verse 1. And saying, and there was given me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel stood saying, rise and measure the temple of God, and the altar, and them that worship therein. Now here the shepherd's rod plainly told us that the measuring is figurative of the same work. What work? The work of the judgment. Then it leads to the conclusion that the temple, the altar, and them that worship therein must figuratively represent the 3 classes to be judged. To be judged where? In the holy place. For if the judgment mentioned here is the most holy place, then why is it that the great multitude will not be investigated? Remember, brethren, that according to the great controversy, (485), it says, the work of the investigative judgment and the blotting out of sins is to be accomplished before the second advent of the Lord. Since the dead are to be judged out of the things written in the books, but in reality, not only the dead, but as well as the living. It says it is impossible that the sins of men should be blotted out until after the judgment at which their cases are to be investigated. Let us distinctly separate the investigation in the most holy place and the investigation in the holy place. Because the shepherds declared clearly that the great multitude will no longer be investigated. If that investigation is in the most holy place, then how could their sins be blotted out? It is impossible. And it is illegal. God is a God of justice. So the investigation in the most holy place, the great multitude will pass the investigation in the most holy place. But the investigation in the holy place, they will no longer to pass or to be investigated. Why? The answer is found in tract number 5, page 110. It says, because it is not measured, meaning investigated. Why? Because it represents those among whom there are no bad to be cast out, plainly indicating that this investigation is in the holy place, by which such investigation to blot out the names of the wicked. But since the great multitude, there will be no more bad to be cast out, there will be no more investigation. For what for? Such investigation. If there is no more names of the wicked to be inscribed into the Lamb's Book of Life. Separation is in 2 phases. Or 2 sections. The first section of the separation, it is the wicked that had been taken out from among the righteous. It is called the first section of separation. In tract number 3, page 68, note that in the first section of the separation, the one in the church, the wicked are taken away from among the just. So that is the first section of the separation. The wicked are taken out from among the righteous or from among the just. Whereas in the second, the one in Babylon, the just are called from among the wicked. Let us study closely, brethren, carefully, this very important subject. There are 2 sections of separation. The first section, it is the wicked that had been taken out. The second section, it is the righteous that had been separated from among the wicked. Separation, cleansing, and purification is pointing to the same event. The shepherd's rod plainly declared thus, the cleansing takes place first in heaven, then second on earth. That is very point in our reading in track number 3, page 53. This startling revelation shows conclusively that the cleansing, according to Daniel 8:14, is first of the sanctuary in heaven and second of the sanctuary on earth. Very plain. So, the statement in track number 3, arranged in perfect order. Saying, track number 3, page 73 and 74. Being the Day of Atonement in type for both the dead and the living, this service of the earthly tabernacle therefore projects the Day of Atonement in its antitype, the cleansing of the sanctuary in heaven from unworthy names in the books, and the cleansing of the church on earth from its unconverted and unstable members, thus bringing the time, first, clean books. Bringing the time of clean books, and then clean church, and then clean people. So the very first cleansing is in the heavenly sanctuary. The church on earth cannot be cleansed not until the books in heaven will be completely cleansed. That is God's program. Now, concerning the cleansing in the heavenly sanctuary, the first section of separation, blotting out the names of the wicked. According to the Shepherd's Rod, track number 3, page 68. The first section of the separation, it is the wicked that have been taken out from among the righteous. And that is called the Day of Reckoning. Now here in track number 3, page 8, it says, so there must come a day of reckoning, a day when the names of those who are found unworthy of eternal life will be blotted out of the Lamb's book of life, a proceeding for which the only correct term can be investigative judgment. Blotting out of names, brothers and sisters, must pass first investigation. What investigation? In track number 5, on page 108, it says, the investigative judgment decides the cases of those who have professed faith in God and who in consequence have had their names recorded in the books. Daniel 7 verse 10. But some of whom have not endured to the end, it determines which name shall be retained and which shall be blotted out. So not until the investigation is completed, the sanctuary cleansed from unworthy members, will the books show the exact number of names that will be retained and accounted worthy of life eternal. Track number 5, page 108. Now, just to make a simple illustration, the first section of separation is the wicked had been taken out from among the righteous. For example, this is the Lamb's Book of Life, not sealed with 7 seals, mixed multitude. The shepherd's rod declared clearly in tract number 3, page 7, reason for the judgment that not every name that has been entered in the Lamb's books will be retained there, is borne out with sad conclusiveness by the following scriptures. And the Lord said unto Moses, whosoever hath sinned against me, him will I blot out of my book. So who are they whose names to be blotted out in the Lamb's Book of Life? Those who sin against God, and that is called the sin against the Holy Ghost. And what is the sin against the Holy Ghost? Rejecting present truth, speaking evil to the message. To SR 198, the rejection of light in present truth is the sin against the Holy Ghost. And also in 1 TG number 5, page 18. Now, the voice of inspiration says that not all names that had been recorded into that book will be retained there. It says in the next paragraph on page 7, accordingly, the books contain the names of a mixed multitude, both those who stood firmly in the faith and continued patiently to the end, and those who did not. Said Christ, he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. But those who do not endure shall be lost. Endure to what? Continue accepting the light sent by God from heaven to His church. Now, it says here in page 9, tract number 3, for in the investigative judgment, the books are open, and the deeds done in the flesh are brought to light for a final reckoning before the Ancient of Days. All who have stood fast to the end will then forever have their sins blotted from the books and their names retained therein, while all who are not overcomers will then forever have their sins retained in the books and their names blotted therefrom. Tract number 3, page 9. Now, I would like to show to you a simple illustration. The shepherd's rod made it so plain that the first section of separation is blotting out the names of the wicked among the congregation of the righteous, or blotting out the names of the wicked in the Lamb's Book of Life. That is the first section of separation. Now, I would like to illustrate, brethren, just a simple illustration. October 11, 1843. That is the Bible calendar. In Gregorian, it is October 22, 1844. The commencement of the investigative judgment. This is October 10, 1844, Bible calendar. In Gregorian, it is October 16, 1845. Now, let us distinctly separate the investigative judgment in the most holy place and the investigative judgment in the holy place. The investigative judgment in the most holy place is for blotting out of sins. Blotting out of sins. But the investigative judgment in the holy place for blotting out of names. But the first section of separation is blotting out the names of the wicked in the Lamb's Book of Life. Now, it is very simple. It is the Lamb's Book of Life, not sealed with 7 seals. So on the Day of Atonement, of course, the first section of separation must take place. All the names of the wicked that had been entered, of course, that is under the first seal. All the names of the wicked that had been entered into the Lamb's Book of Life will be blotted out. And the second section of separation, the righteous had been taken out from among the congregation of the wicked. But in this instance, in the heavenly sanctuary, the second section of separation is that the righteous, the names of the righteous are brought into the most holy place, but the wicked, their names are still in the book, or it was recorded in the book of death. So the illustration, the second section of separation, is that the righteous are brought into the most holy place. That is the second section. But the first section, the names of the wicked are blotted out in the Lamb's Book of Life. And that proceeding continually in progress since 1844. And we will show to you without any doubts, brethren, that we are now in the judgment for the living. Now, I would like to read to you 1 SR 177. It says, that is, after the separation, purification, those who are left, the 144,000, being the remnant. Now let us read again the statement in 1 SR 177. That is, after the separation, purification. Now, we already read in 1 TJ, number 11, page 10, it says, "Thus the Lord charged his messengers to cry yet, to proclaim again, to continue preaching the additional light, the judgment for the dead, the cleansing of the sanctuary," Daniel 8:14, "the purification of it by blotting out from the books the names of those who are found not eligible to come up in the first resurrection, the resurrection of the holy ones." But we already explained that that is not the only resurrection. So the parable in Matthew 20 answers completely the proceedings in the most holy place and the proceedings in the holy place. Now let us focus first the proceedings in the holy place. Holy place. First, those who will be resurrected in Revelation 20 verse 5 and 6. Who are they? Those who died under the first seal, second, fourth, and fifth. Second, those who will be resurrected in Ezekiel 37. Who are they? Those who died under the third seal. Third, those who died under Isaiah 57:1. Brothers and sisters, that is from 1844 up to the commencement of the Great Tribulation. Fourth, Revelation 14:13. Who are they? Revelation 14:13, they are those who will die after the sealing of the 144,000. That is during the Great Tribulation. And last, the worshipers. Who are they? The 144,000. And according to the parable, the last will be the first one to be granted immortality. And the next to be granted immortality is Revelation 14:13, and then Isaiah 57:1, and then Ezekiel 37, and then Revelation 20 verse 5 and 6. The first became the last, and the last became the first. Although we will discuss it more clearly in the subject, the daily and the sanctuary. But notice, the great multitude is not included, because the proceedings in the holy place is blotting out of names. And the shepherd's rod made it so plain. The great multitude is no longer to be measured, meaning investigated, where? In the holy place. Because there are no more bad to be cast out. At the time when the message goes to the great multitude, that is after the cleansing of the heavenly temple. Track number 5, 110. But more specifically, the cleansing in the holy place. Because at that time, when the message goes to the great multitude, the cleansing in the most holy place is not yet finished. What is the cleansing in the most holy place? blotting out of sins. And logically, the sins of the great multitude are not yet blotted out in that period of time. So that investigation is investigation in the holy place. That is very plain, brothers and sisters. The investigation in the holy place. They will no longer to pass. And the last one to pass the investigation in the holy place, they are the worshipers. The 144,000 living saints. Brothers and sisters. Now let us go back to our reading. In 1 SR 177. That is, after the separation, and it says purification. So separation and purification is pointing to the same event, brothers and sisters. When does the 144,000 are sealed? Or when does the sealing of the 144,000 takes place? Is it before the purification? Is it after the purification? Or is it during the purification? Now let us read track number 1 on page 20. It says, since the purification or the sealing came at the commencement of the loud cry. 1 SR page 20. Brethren, let us distinctly separate the loud cry during the sealing of the 144,000, the loud cry during the Great Tribulation, the loud cry during the little time of trouble, and the loud cry during the great time of trouble. Our reading is very plain. Can we project that 4 classes of loud cry in our dialogue? That the sealing of the 144,000 came at the commencement of the loud cry. That is very plain. In track number 1, page 20. So you see, this is the 4 sections of the loud cry. First, during the sealing of the 144,000. Second, during the Great Tribulation, by which the one that will be converted during this time are all Sabbath keepers, not under the banner of the third angel's message. And then during the little time of trouble, by which the loud cry is proclaimed within the two-horn beast domain, United States of America, to all Sunday-keeping Christians. And then the loud cry during the great time of trouble, it is to all humanity throughout the whole world. Now let us focus first to the very first loud cry proclamation. Brothers and sisters, the very first loud cry proclamation, that is during the sealing of the 144,000. Track number 1, page 20. Now let me read to you first. White House Recruiter. Page 39. It says, but in what way is it to give absolute power and force to them? But in what way is it to give absolute power and force to them? First, by bringing to light the heretofore unrevealed aspects of the judgment. That is very plain. The third angel's message will never swell into a loud cry, not until all the aspects that pertains to the judgment will be completely revealed. No, the very first aspect of the judgment is the bookwork. Answerer number 5, page 30. Because the very first to be cleansed is the sanctuary in heaven. Track number 3, page 53. Of course, revelation cometh only from God. So the statement, the description of the 144,000, that they follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth, plainly indicating that they have complete understanding concerning the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary. From start to finish, to understand the book of Revelation as stated in track number 15, page 13, it says, both seers distinctly declare that the event which they saw was the judgment. The difference between the two scenes is that Daniel was led to look into the sanctuary while preparations were being made for the judgment to convene, whereas John was led to look into the sanctuary after the judgment had been set up. In fact, John not only saw the judgment in progress, but he saw the whole proceeding from start to finish. But according to the shepherd's rod, in 2 TG number 12, on page 29, it says, the only difference you see is that Daniel was shown the judgment being set up, whereas John saw it in full session. The revelation, moreover, in the following verses again and again endeavors to make us see that the event there portrayed is the judgment in session. Fear God and give glory to Him, for the hour of His judgment is come. And I saw thrones, John declares, and judgment was given unto them. John truly paid it as a prophecy, but when it actually takes place, then God's agency on earth The spirit of prophecy in the church is to proclaim that the event has actually taken place. Since the records of both the dead and the living, the statement records meaning bookwork transaction. Since the records of both the dead and the living must be reviewed by the judicial tribunal, the first angel's message, Revelation 14 verse 6, must be proclaimed in both periods, in the period of the judgment of the dead and by a loud cry in the period of the judgment of the living. Loud cry. Ponder deeply this statement in 1 TG number 15, page 19 and 20. One TG number 15, pages 19 and 20. It says, this message, that is the message that makes the loud cry, seemed to be an addition to the third message, joining it as the midnight cry joined the second angel's message in 1844. Writings, page 277. And on page 118, we read, I then saw the third angel, said my accompanying angel, fearful is his work, awful is his mission. He is the angel that is to select the wheat from the tares, and seal or bind the wheat for the heavenly garner. These things should engross the whole mind, the whole attention. The author of these statements makes clear that the loud cry is not made by a lot of noise. No, it is not made by a lot of noise, but by an additional message. And that the third angel's message in the end of the world, not the end itself, selects the wheat from the tares. Who among you would be foolish enough to close his eyes and ears to the testimony of the prophets, and at last in consternation cry out, the harvest is past, the summer is ended, and we are not saved? Jeremiah 8 verse 20. 1 TG 15, page 19 and 20. So, I do fully believe that that is pointing to the first section of the loud cry. That is during the sealing of the 144,000 on earth. Now, when does the sealing of the 144,000 begins? Now, let us read again early writings. Page 38. It says, I saw 4 angels who had a work to do on the earth and were on their way to accomplish it. Jesus was clothed with priestly garments. He gazed in pity on the remnant, then raised his hands and with a voice of deep pity cried, my blood, Father, my blood, my blood, my blood. Then I saw an exceeding bright light come from God, who sat upon the great white throne, and was shed all about Jesus. Then I saw an angel with a commission from Jesus, swiftly flying to the 4 angels who had a work to do on the earth, and waving something up and down in his hand, crying with a loud voice, hold, 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 until the servants of God are sealed in their foreheads. I asked my accompanying angel the meaning of what I heard, what the 4 angels were about to do. He said to me that it was God that restrained the powers and that He gave His angels charge over things on the earth, that the 4 angels had power from God to hold the 4 winds, and that they were about to let them go. But while their hands were loosening and the 4 winds were about to blow, the merciful eye of Jesus gazed on the remnant that were not sealed. And He raised His hands to the Father and pleaded with Him that He had spilled His blood for them. Then another angel was commissioned to fly swiftly to the 4 angels and bid them hold until the servants of God were sealed with the seal of the living God in their foreheads. Now, brethren, if you are a full-fledged Shepherd's Rod believer, this is the definition given by the Shepherd's Rod to the word remnant. 1 SR 102. What constitutes the remnant? What constitutes the remnant? The definition of remnant is that which is left after the separation, removal, or destruction of a part. But it was answered in 1 SR 177. That is, after the separation, purification. Those who are left, the 144,000 being the remnant. Who are they, the remnant? The 144,000. When? After the separation, after the purification. Which is the very first to be purified? Heavenly sanctuary. According to tract number 3, page 53. And the Shepherd's Rod made it so plain. In 1 TG number 11, page 10, it says, the cleansing of the sanctuary, Daniel 8:14. The purification of it by blotting out from the books the names. What is purification? Blotting out the names, of course, the names of the wicked. Now, let us read again the statement. In tract number 3, page 53, concerning Daniel 8:14. It says here, this startling revelation shows conclusively that the cleansing according to Daniel 8:14 is first of the sanctuary in heaven, and second of the sanctuary on earth. That is very plain, brothers and sisters. And it is called the great and dreadful day of the Lord. According to White House Recruiter, page 29. It says, in other parabolic terms, the great and dreadful day of the Lord is His casting out the bad fish, Meaning, blotting out of names. The shepherd's rod is very plain. Brothers and sisters, in 1 TG number 6, on page 38, saying, it is obvious that they escape the destruction of these sinners in the church. And the quotation is Isaiah 4 verse 3, and it shall come to pass that he that is left in Zion and he that remaineth in Jerusalem shall be called holy, even everyone that is written among the living in Jerusalem. Written. Pointing to the bookwork. Written among the living. Therefore, Isaiah 4 verse 3 directly applied to the blotting out of names among the congregation of the living. By which the voice of inspiration is very plain. In 2 SR 164, it says, while the investigation for the congregation of the dead is in progress, there can be no separation among the congregation of the living. Blotting out of sins never called as separation. Blotting out of sins is called purification, but never been called as separation. So the statement very plain. While the investigation for the congregation of the dead is in progress, meaning not yet finished, there can be no separation among the congregation of the living. Now let us go back again to the reading. In 1 TG number 6, page 38. It says, only the holy ones, those whose names are left written in the book. So the same with 1 SR 177. They are called remnant, the 144,000, because they had been left after the separation, after the purification. The statement in 1 SR Pocket Edition on page 9 saying, and how can one escape the slaughter? And how can one escape the slaughter unless one knows what the sealing, what the marking is, when it is, and where it is to be? This last question saying, where it is to be, in reality, is very important. Because almost all the Bedean Shepherd's Rod believers, the only sealing, the only marking that they know is the sealing of the 144,000 on the earthly sanctuary. By which that is only the material side. according to the vision of the prophet, Sister White, Jesus Christ gazed on pity to the remnant. Early writings, page 38, which were not yet sealed. Why is it that they are called remnant? In spite of the fact that they were not yet sealed, indicates that such pleading of Jesus Christ is after the blotting out of names of all the wicked among the congregation of the living in the heavenly sanctuary. And at that time, the four winds is about to blow. Ponder deeply, brothers and sisters. It is the desire of Satan that if possible the winds should be blown as soon as possible. But at that time, Jesus Christ gazed on pity with the remnant which were not yet sealed. Let me read to you the statement in track number 15. It is very plain. Track number 15. It says page 61. Track number 15, page 61. Seeing that the 144,000, the servants of God, are not as yet sealed, not yet enclosed, protected, guarded, and ready to take their stand with the Lamb on Mount Zion, but rather are still commingled with the tares. The angels are commanded to forestall the clash. This reading can be easily discerned that the seal of protection will never be granted to anyone, not until they will separate themselves from sin and sinners. Who are the sinners mentioned there? Impenitent sinners. Because many will ridicule us by saying that, are you saying that you are no longer sinners? We are still sinners, but penitent sinners. The impenitent sinners, they are those who are rejecting the present truth. I would like to read again the statement. Track number 15, page 61. Seeing that the 144,000, the servants of God, are not as yet sealed, perfectly corroborating to the vision of Sister White. They were not yet sealed. Brothers and sisters, when that event that Jesus Christ pleaded to God the Father, after all the names of the wicked among the congregation of the living had been completely blotted out, and the only names among the congregation of the living that had been left are the 144,000. That is the reason that they are called the remnant. But at that time, after such blotting out of names, they were not yet protected, guarded, because they are still commingled with the tails. Track number 15, page 61. Now, let me read to you. Answer. Number 2, page 47. Flood and tears are figurative equivalents. Very plain. Answerer number 2, page 47. Flood and tears are figurative equivalents. And who are they, the flood? The dragon's flood. 2TG 24, page 24. It says, finally, what could be the dragon's flood that proceeds out of his mouth, if not dragon, prompted interpreters of the scriptures, through whom he expects to cause the church to be carried away? Truly, the self-appointed prophets in Israel of today are more in number than were the prophets in Elijah's day. Here is a fact which only deep and blind persons would try to deny. No, I am not taking pleasure in unveiling this truth. I do it only because I must. God wants His people to have the truth, and so I have no alternative but to tell it. Who are the dragon's blood? The prophets of Baal, the priests of Baal, who lead God's people into the greatest fallacy and folly of the day. But the priests and prophets of Baal in our days are more in number than in the days of ancient Elijah. So, they must be more than 800, more than 850. Therefore, it cannot be applied to a movement by which they claim inspiration. Brothers and sisters, now, look at the statement in the Old Symbolic Code. Let us read. 2 Symbolic Code number 1, page 6. 2 Symbolic Code number 1, page 6. The above quotation needs no interpretation, as does early writings, page 71. It is definite, meaning very clear. It is definite that before God's people receive the seal, they must separate themselves from sin and sinners. They must separate themselves. And the shepherd's rod very plain. In 2TG 43, page 11 and 12, let me read to you. Moreover, since the announcement of the separation of the saints from the sinners. So it is the second section of separation. Because it is the saints that had been taken out from among the sinners. Whose sinners? Represented by the tares. Who are they, the tares? The dragon's blood. Who are they, the dragon's blood? The prophets and priests of Baal, by which they were so proud to tell to the people that they were not inspired. According to 2 TJ 41, page 7. Our subject is the day of slaughter. If you still remember, the slaughtering is divided into two divisions. The slaughtering before the close of provision and the slaughtering after the close of provision. That close of provision cannot be the close of provision in the spiritual Israel. Brothers and sisters, because the close of provision in the spiritual Israel, that is after the 144,000, are completely sealed. It says here in 2 SR 165, when this number is sealed, probation will close for the church. And the judgment for those who are in the world will commence. And this is what confused many the Bereans. Because they were placing the judgment for the living, by which the sign of that event is the earthquake, which is the slaughtering. They were saying that that judgment for the living is in the church. Shows great blindness. Because that judgment for the living is no longer in the church, that is in the world. To the second place, the sign of the event is the slaughtering. That before God will send His people to the world, He will cleanse first completely His church. As stated in Isaiah 66, verse 16. Brothers and sisters, now, I would like to read again 2 TJ 43:11. Moreover, since the announcement of the separation of the saints from the sinners originate with the 11-hour sermons, what we can do is only to announce. Because God is a God of liberty, a God of freedom, and God cannot accept any homage which is not voluntarily given. But accordingly, in tract number 8, page 21, those who give implicit heed to the call shall have an irresistible desire to come fully into line. What line? The line of truth. Those who give implicit heed to the call, tract number 8, page 21, shall have an irresistible desire to come fully into line and to have the Lord separate them from sin and sinners. The statement to have the Lord, meaning they themselves voluntarily give themselves and allowed God to separate them from sin and sinners. And that is the time that God can grant to them the seal of protection. they alone shall receive the seal of God. And as the first fruits of the kingdom, 144,000 strong stand with the Lamb on Mount Zion. And as the vision given by God to the prophet is stated in 1 SR 222, saying, though such great apostasy and blasphemy has gripped the world, God's church, 144,000 in number, is scattered throughout the length and breadth of the earth without a shepherd, have not bowed a knee to Baal. This statement is still unfulfilled. And it will be fulfilled after that Day of Atonement. Brothers and sisters, that all of them, the 144,000, the mere fact that the description given by the voice of inspiration, that they have no shepherd, meaning they were no longer under the umbrella of any organization. That is very plain. Because if you are under such organization, then this statement cannot be applied. That they have been scattered without a shepherd. But the sleeping multitudes, that is, those who remain on that organization, on that movement by which the present truth was not bestowed by God on that movement, the only thing that placed the blood on the doorpost by which the destroying angel cannot enter into that house, meaning into that movement, because there is a blood on the doorpost, or in other words, there is a present truth in that movement. Now, I would like to read track number 3. And I remember that statement. In 12 Symbolic Code. Number 1. Symbolic Code number 1, page 11. I love so much this really. How plain it is that God is about to do a great thing in the earth that all will know about. Before this message came, we are unable to place all of these events. But how clear they are now. This statement is in reality. Before this message came, we are unable to place all of these events. But how clear they are now. Very clear. Brothers and sisters. And according to the voice of inspiration, that when the truth is revealed, it says, three symbolic code, 4 symbolic code, 10 to 12, page 3. 4 symbolic code, 10 to 12, page 3. It says, we have also a more sure word of prophecy, whereunto ye do will that ye take heed, as unto a light that shineth in a dark place, until the day dawn, and the day star arise in your hearts. 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 19. This scripture declares that prophecy is the more sure word, that it is as a light that shines in a dark place, and that when it is understood, it makes the subject so plain that its clearness is compared by inspiration as a day star in our hearts. And this is the time that it was completely understood. The statement in tract number 3, page 86, and it cannot be mistaken. Because such proofs are infallible. To repeat again, the only verse ever recorded in the Bible that you can read the statement infallible proofs is found only in Acts chapter 1, verse 3. And it is attached to the 40 typical days. Now, let us read again. To whom also, Acts chapter 1, verse 3. To whom also he showed himself alive after his passion by many infallible proofs. Many. And we will count at this time the infallible proofs. The word many. To whom also he showed himself alive after his passion by many infallible proofs, being seen of them 40 days, and speaking of the things pertaining to the kingdom of God. Now let us read tract number 3, page 86. It says here, the 40 days, Acts chapter 1, verse 3 and 9, from the resurrection to the ascension, are consequently typical of the period from 1844 to the fulfillment of the marking and slaying as recorded in Ezekiel chapter 9 and Revelation 7 verse 3 to 8, Revelation 14 verse 1 to 5 respectively, and in Testimonies to Ministers, page 445, Testimonies volume 3, page 266, also Early Writings, page 270 and 273. Now, let us focus to the statement, typical of the period from 1844. What is the period from 1844? Cleansing of the sanctuary. Now, brothers and sisters, tell me if you think that this occurrence is only an accident. Now, let me show to you again. Let me see if I could see that diagram. The diagram, I think the 40 typical days, the first phase. First phase. Okay. So this is the very first one. Would you think the statement, the 40 days, Acts chapter 1, verse 3 and 9, from the resurrection to the ascension? When does Jesus Christ was resurrected? April 18, 31 AD. When does Jesus Christ ascended to heaven? May 27, 31 AD. Would you think it is just a mere happenstance that April 18, 31 AD and the commencement of the cleansing of the sanctuary October 22, 1844, 18 plus 22 equals 40? No, it is purposely designed. How many remaining days in April 18, 31 AD? 13. How many number that you need to complete the number 40 in the remaining days 30? You need 27. Now, let us go to 138, slide 3, the waving in its significance. Now, look at brothers and sisters. In 1844 Bible calendar, pattern number 6, it is April 18. In Gregorian calendar, that is 1845, April 27. Now, I would like to show to you in this little diagram. The type is April 18, 31 AD. That is the resurrection. To the ascension, May 27, 31 AD. This is literal 40 days. Meaning, from April 18, 31 AD, there are 13 remaining days plus May 27 equals 40. This is the type. Now look at brothers and sisters. That the statement in tract number 3, page 86, the 40 days from Christ's resurrection to His ascensions are typical, consequently typical of the period from 1844. Now, the period from 1844 is October 22, the commencement of the cleansing of the sanctuary. In Bible calendar, this is October 11, 1843. Now, would you think April 18 plus October 22 equals 40 is an accident? How about the statement in the Old Symbolicon? The diagram. In 3 Symbolicon number 5 and 6, page 13. That 1844 there, that is Bible calendar. The same pattern in April 1831 AD. By which in Gregorian calendar, that waving is April 27, 1845. But in Bible calendar, it is April 18, 1844. The same date to the resurrection of Jesus Christ. The waving that took place in the most holy place. The first waving. And do you think that is mere happenstance? 13 plus 27 equals 40? How about the last day of atonement? We call it last day of atonement because it will never happen again. It will take thousands of years. The same with this occurrence. Seldom happen. As a matter of fact, never been happen. October 22, 1844, which is in Bible calendar October 11, never been happen again except only in 1844. Now we already proclaimed that this coming March 27, 2021, in Bible calendar, this is October 10, 2022. 27. This is the type, May 27. So God revealed to us the cleansing of the sanctuary. The commencement took place in 22. That is 18 plus 22. But the end part, because the end part of the 40 days is 27, therefore the end part is also 27. Then 13 plus 27 equals 40. But that is pointing first to the type, the period from 1844. But how about the marking and slaying? It is still rebuilt by 40 days. Brethren, the only thing that you could do is whether to accept, reject this message, but you cannot withhold the fulfillment of the event. 100% I guarantee to you, the prophecy will be fulfilled. The prophecy must be fulfilled. Now, I would like to make summarization about Sunday, the day of slaughter. Tomorrow, we'll be studying the 12 figurativeness. Three symbolic code number 1, page 8. Therefore, as there are two separations, there is a double fulfillment of Ezekiel's slaughter. One in the church before the close of provision, and the other in the worldly churches after the close of provision. We will focus only the slaughtering in Ezekiel 9. Because there are many slaying. For example, Revelation 7. That is not Ezekiel 9. Revelation 9:18. That is not Ezekiel 9. But concerning the slaughtering in Ezekiel chapter 9, there is a double application. The first slaughtering is before the close of provision, and the second slaughtering is after the close of provision. But how God revealed? By 40 days. Let us read again the statement. Track number 3, page 86. You see? The 40 days, Acts chapter 1, verse 3 and 9, from the resurrection to the ascension are consequently typical of the period from 1844. There are 3 incidents that reveals the 40 days. The mystical number 40. First, the commencement of the cleansing of the sanctuary, October 22. The resurrection of Jesus Christ, April 18. 18 plus 22 equals 40. Second, the waving of the sheep as recorded in 3 symbolic code number 1. April 18, 1844 in Bible calendar, but in Gregorian, that is April 27. Which exactly fits to the end part of the 40 days of each type, May 27, then 13 plus 27 equals 40. And we will show to you that it also reveals the 30 typical days. Now let me read to you. 2SR. $255 and 256. It says, the Passover lamb being separated from the flock on the 10th day coincides with the separation of the righteous from the wicked in the antediluvian world. The day of Christ's burial coincides with the day of commencement of the flood, also with the commencement of the plagues. And his ascension with the day after the rain ceased, also with the end of the world and the translation of the saints. These coincidences are perfect with the day of the week and of the month, but the one is a month earlier in the season than the other. The Passover being in the first month and the flood in the second. It has been explained that the Passover is a type of the close of provision for the church? When would be the close of provision for the church? Passover. Now, the statement in 2 SR 165 saying, when this number is sealed, probation will close for the church. 2 SR 165. Therefore, we can easily understand that the 144,000 will be completely sealed on that antitypical Passover. And it is stated in 2 SR 256, it says, the rain falls in the first month, that is the month by which the closing work for the church is represented, the sealing time of the 144,000. So one truth dovetailing another. Brothers and sisters, the sealing of the 144,000 will take place only 1 year. Not only the sealing, but as well as the deliverance. Let us read track number 5. On page 88, it says, and finally, the only revelation pertaining to and coming at a year, and preparing the 4 angels for to slay the third part of men, it says the Lord, the year of my redeem, Isaiah 63 verse 4. And this year, at which his people are redeemed, is of course the time of the sealing and of the deliverance of the 144,000. So the sealing of the 144,000 is that predicted event. It is called the acceptable year of the Lord. It is still a long study, brethren. But let us focus to the subject, the day of slaughter. Then it says in 2 SR 256, therefore there are 30 typical days between one close of provision and the other. 30 typical days. If we were given light on how to decipher these typical 30 days, it seems it would reveal the exact number of years from the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9 Passover to the final close of provision. 2 SR 256. Now let me show to you, brethren, this little illustration. And page 163, the diagram 163. We call it the slaying. And try to look at to our diagram. This is the type, as stated in track number 3, page 86. Christ's resurrection to his ascension. That is 40 days. April 18, May 27. Now ponder deeply, brothers and sisters. In this September 27, 2021, that is the Passover. Brothers and sisters, this is the Passover. April 14, 2023. Now, there is no other Passover by which it will make 40 on the type. There are only 3 numbers given in the type: 18, 13, and 27. I would like to show to you. So God is a miraculous God. The type, the number given in the type is 18, 13, and 27. In order, now for example, it is blank equals 40. Blank equals 40. Blank equals 40. Then you need only here 22 to make it 40. You need 27 to make it 40. You need 13 to make it 40. This is how God revealed, as stated in track number 3, page 86. When does the commencement of the cleansing of the sanctuary took place? October 22. So the statement very plain. The 40 days in Acts chapter 1 verse 3 and 9 from the resurrection to ascension are consequently typical of the period from 1844. What period? The cleansing of the sanctuary. Commenced October 22, 1844. 18 plus 22 equals 40. The last day of atonement, March 27, 2021, 13 plus 27 equals 40. Now, how about the Passover week? Brothers and sisters, when the 144,000 will be completely sealed, it must be typical 40 as well. Because that is the statement in track number 3, page 86. Now, let me show to you from 2000, this is 2021. April 14, 2023. In Gregorian calendar, that would be on September 27, 2021. And in April 14, 2024, in Gregorian calendar, that is September 22, 2022. Now, in 2025, in Gregorian, that is September 17. What number you need to make 1740? Brothers and sisters, you need 23, but there is no given number 23 in the type. Only 18, 13, and 27. Now in 2026, 11, you need 29. In 2027, in Gregorian, September 6. On 2026, September 1. On 2027, August 27. April 14, 2029, Bible calendar. On April 14, 2030, that is August 21. Then April 14, 2031, that is August 16. Now, brothers and sisters, well, this one, it seems the same with September 27, 2021. But the sealing of the 144,000, which is the acceptable year of the Lord, the year of my redeem, will immediately be followed by the day of vengeance. By such day of vengeance must also be 40 typical days. If this is the time by which the 144,000 will be completely sealed, then how about the next year? No longer exactly fits to the day of vengeance. So, brothers and sisters, there is no doubt, 100%. Now, I would like to show to you. Slaughtering. Slaughtering after the close of provision. Let us put here. Close of provision. The slaughtering after the close of provision and the slaughtering before the close of provision. Without any doubts, the slaughtering after the close of provision must be on September 22, 2022. By which in Bible calendar, that is April 14, 2024. That is 40 typical days. April 18 plus 22 equals 40. This is September 22, which is exactly fits 30 typical days. Why? Because September 22 and October 22, it seems only 30 days. Right? Now let us count. Show a Gregorian calendar. No, count. Calendar itself, September and October, whatever the pattern. Calendar itself. Gregorian calendar. Whatever the pattern, whatever pattern. Only September and October. Project September and October. So let us count. From here, 22 to here, 22. That is 30 days. Right? Now, let us go. 1, and of course, it is 7. 7 plus 1 equals 8, plus 22. That is 30. From here, 1, then 7, 8 plus 22, that is 30. And there is no other event that coincides with the 30 typical days and 40 typical days except this event. What is another 30 typical days? March 27, the last day of atonement, 2021, and April 27, 1845, the first waving. Brothers and sisters, from April 27 or March 27 to April 27, it seems 30 typical days. But this one is counting backward. Brothers and sisters, reverse order. The same with this one, reverse order. September 22 to October 22. March 27 to April 27. 30 typical days. That is how we decipher the 30 typical days. Then for sure, September 27, 2021, brothers and sisters, in that night, the fulfillment of that parable of Jesus Christ. The rapture mentioned in that reading, without any doubts, it will be fulfilled on that very year, September 27, 2021. So, we will continue that subject, but next time it will be explained on the subject, the 12 figurative months. So hoping, brethren, the Lord would bless us and would help us. Tomorrow we'll try to produce a diagram to portray the event on its proper order. So, to repeat again, the slaughtering, Ezekiel 9, after the close of provision, that is September 22, 2022. The slaughtering before the close of provision, that is September 27, 2021. We will continue this subject, and may the good Lord bless you and have a wonderful evening.